So I have a song on the record called "While I'm in the Wind," and it's all about leaving how much I have to be away from the kids and kind of processing that. And it's almost like a bit of a letter to them, being like, I know this kind of sucks, but I hope you understand.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Aisha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Aisha.
Episode 258, and we have a very special guest today. But before we get to that, last week we had Jesse Reeves, and one of the songs that they've released, this collective, this living room recording sessions that they've had. One of the songs they released, of course, recently was "I Speak Jesus." And in church yesterday, and I don't believe they wrote that song because I've heard Newsboys do it, and I think somebody else wrote it way back when. A great song. But yesterday morning in church, they sang that, and my wife said, "Wow, what an amazing song!" Who's it from and whatnot. And of course, I remember when Newsboys did it, so I said Newsboys, and then of course I forgot that Jesse had done it as well. So. I was thinking, wow, what an amazing coincidence, I guess, right after chatting with Jesse. So just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, it's such a powerful song. I love it. It was great to know that we had a conversation with one of the writers.
Yeah. And
songwriters.
I think it was very suitable for this past Easter weekend as well. Very relevant song. So. It was great. Enjoyed that conversation. And today's conversation is going to be another great one. So this guy that we're going to chat with, Benjamin William Hastings, one of the co-writers of "So Will I" 100 Billion Times, Hillsong, and if he's written with a lot of other prolific artists and songwriters, and he's got a lot of songs under his belt that we've sung in church, even recent songs like Brandon Lake's "Gratitude."
It's a great song, by the way.
Yep, it is. "The Father's House," Corey Asbury. All these songs that he's had a hand in. And part of it is because of the fact that he spent so much time in Australia with the Hillsong group and then traveled all over the world, recently even with Chris Tomlin and United. So this is a conversation we've been looking forward to. We've been actually waiting for quite a while for Benjamin. We've been wanting to chat with him, and it just took a while in arranging it, but we finally got to have him on the podcast. One of the songs that he's recently written, or at least recently released, is a song that we're playing on the radio right now on my radio station. That's "Thing About Praise." A great song as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Isn't that song featuring
Blessing Offer?
Blessing Offer?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It is a good song.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had Blessing Offer.
Blessing
Offer we had a while back as well on the show. So now it's Benjamin's turn. So let's get into this conversation with Benjamin William Hastings on Between the Grooves. Good morning.
Hello, how you doing? Sorry to keep you waiting.
Hey, not a problem.
Morning,
how's it going?
You've got
Good morning.
You've got James and Aisha here.
Hey guys.
Where are you right now?
I am in LA.
Oh, okay.
LA. So it's an early, well, probably not early for you guys, but it's an early start for me. Morning.
That's 10 o'clock. So that's 7 o'clock for you?
7 o'clock, yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for getting up early for us. Appreciate it.
We're in a triangle. We're up. This call is a triangle call.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Man, Ben, you're based in LA, huh?
Yeah, I am. So we moved here a couple of years ago. No.
Okay.
I'm from Ireland originally, and then I lived in Sydney for 10 years, which is where I met my wife. Kids are Australian. Mm-hmm. And then we moved out here a little while ago.
And why California?
Look, it's a good question. I think we just knew we had to make the move to the States. It could have been Nashville. But we just already had a lot of friends here. Actually, a lot of them are down in Orange County, but we have a few friends that moved over with us around the same time that we all came to LA together. And
that's nice.
And yeah, it just kind of made sense. It also it made for a challenging first year. LA is definitely it's a hard city, and it's got a charm to it, but I think that charm takes a minute. Outside of like vacation mode, that charm takes a minute as somebody actually are living. But I think so after the first year, I feel like the first year was really hard, and then we kind of found our feet a little bit. And I mean, I think we made it hard on ourselves. Because the rent's so expensive. I was like, oh, we're not moving into a house. Like, let's just get an apartment. And so we got here. We got 2 kids. We have a cat, and we decided to get a big dog in that time as well, which was a terrible idea. And so
for an apartment, anyways, yeah.
I know. Yeah. So it was just like it was a farm in our house. It was absolute chaos. And so now we got a little bit more space, and that's definitely helped as well.
So are you still working with Hillsong, or have you kind of gone completely on your own now?
Yeah. So look, it's a good question. I'm still doing stuff with United.
Right.
And those guys are definitely still, I mean, everyone there, like, still some of my best friends, and we still work together a lot and are very involved in what each other's doing. So yeah, outside of that, I'm not really 100%. I'm still kind of, if I'm being completely honest, I'm still in a phase of trying to figure that out. It's a bit of an interesting time.
Well, definitely an interesting time with the Hillsong organization. And since then, like, I've seen, like, Taya did that, where she come up with her solo stuff, kind of steering away, but still having connections with Hillsong. Because obviously, if you've worked with and been family with this community for such a long time, then it kind of makes sense. You're not completely, cut off or anything like that.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, we all are, we really are all kind of best friends, and family is maybe even a better way to put it. Because beyond friendship, you've got those, like, especially when you just travel with people, and you've literally, like, it is like having it's like this other family on the road, and we all just slot into our, like, roles. And United specifically toured a lot of this year. We did a run with Tomlin, and it was awesome. It was super fun, and the band just feels like as tight as it's ever felt. And I mean, like, if as friends, musically, I'm not sure. I think it was still pretty decent. But as friends, I don't think I've ever laughed as much as we did this last year. And I think a part of that is when you go through things together, like I guess we have. It definitely does. It pulls you together a little bit, and it forces you to have really honest conversations, and so we've seen a lot of that, and a lot of, like, I guess, real health in our little part of the team. So that's part of the greater thing. It's all a bit complicated at the minute.
I hear you. Now, being a songwriter, have any songs come out of your experience from the last year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a song definitely quite a few, but there's a song specifically on my record called Cathedrals of the Nelder Grove, which is a very, I know it sounds like a Lord of the Rings book or something, but...
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Gotta read it.
Yeah. But that kind of very openly kind of dives into a lot of my feelings towards a lot of the stuff that's kind of happened and things that have come out about church. And I guess it's me just kind of publicly processing it.
Wow.
The reason it's called Nelder Grove is because I wrote a song a few years back called Seasons, which kind of featured all around sequoias. And at the time I was teaching songwriting at a college, and a student came up to me and said, "Hey, I know you wrote this song about sequoias, and it's all about, like, the hook in it is like your promise is loyal from seed to sequoia." So the idea being, like, God gives you a promise, he doesn't give you a tree. He gives you a seed that often you got to go plant and you got to wait on. And that's kind of the idea. And so it's all about this tree kind of surviving through the winter. And even though it looks like winter, spring's coming, like that kind of idea. But he came to me and said, hey, do you know about sequoias in the summer? And I was like, no. And he actually handed me a sequoia seed, which is very sweet of him. He'd been on a hike and found one and said, well, do you know sequoias, the way that they reproduce is they actually need to catch on fire. And that's how they spread their seeds. They catch on fire. They shred some of the bark, and hidden behind the bark is the seeds. I may be butchering that biologically a little bit, but that's the concept. And so I just thought, well, that's incredible. And at some point, I'm going to have to write another sequoia song, like for the summer version of whatever this is. So
the California forest fires are actually a good thing? Is that what you're saying? Or
well, yeah. So what's crazy is that's right. The way. No, well. That's how that's essentially how God made them, and it's actually similar in Australia for seeds to spread. They need the forest fires in the outback. Like the fire is actually nature's way of spreading the seeds on all these. That's like kind of how they work. So it is kind of a funny, it's a strange concept, but there's the thing that I found really cool about it was. As I was writing the song, that came back to me, and I was like, I should look this up just to make sure this guy's for real. And right. And as I was diving through YouTube videos, I found this one YouTube video, and it maybe had like 200 views, and it was called like some Sequoias of the Nelder Grove or something, and I looked it up, and it's this guy passionately talking sequoias and the way the fire, and the thing that he said that got me was the fire needs to be strong enough that it'll actually kill some of the mature giant sequoias, but what you get in the bargain is 100 times more giant sequoias. And I just thought, wow, what a beautiful metaphor for the fire, like the hardships that sometimes in life we get called to, like the things that really produce the most fruit in our lives kind of have to have the potential to take us out. But if you endure it, the fruit of that is so substantial. And so anyway, I took that whole snippet. I found the guy's email. I emailed him saying, hey, can I use this? And I took the whole snippet, and just at the end of the song, you hear this ecologist talking about sequoias. But it kind of sounds like
that's awesome.
And he was good with that, eh?
Yeah, he was great with it. Yeah. I think he was just enamored that, like, in the sense that I don't think he thought that the ecology lecture that he put on YouTube was going to end up in a song.
Right.
I think he was taken back by the
sure.
So yeah, he was happy, but it was so that's probably the one where I have got the most raw about everything, and it's very metaphorical. So I think you got to kind of look to pull the different messages from it. But
now, does he get songwriting credits for that as well, or
he definitely is. That's a good question. He got like a licensing credit, I think.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
collecting royalties and everything. Like, why not, right? Never thought this lecture would go this far,
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Did he even know did he know who you are?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, he does now because he's getting all these checks in the mail, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mechanical sync.
Absolutely.
Now, when you moved to California, did you find that from a songwriting standpoint, did it allow you to spread your wings a little bit more with other songwriters?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of getting to write with a lot of other songwriters and even artists for a while. And I feel like even since I moved to California, I've been able to do less because of just how busy I've been with this, with doing my own kind of stuff now.
Oh yeah, when you're going solo, it's certainly a lot more work than if you're working with a group and you've got other people doing a whole bunch of stuff for you and with you.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I actually realized how much work it really was, but I am loving it. But it's a lot. Like I spend a lot of time on the road, and it's definitely been that side of it's been a real challenge. But there are some people that I still do get to write with a lot. So I'm writing a lot with Brandon Lake, and
nice.
We have a good writing history. Like he wrote a song on my record called Eden, and I helped him with Gratitude, and so we've been working a lot on stuff for his upcoming project, and then I still write with a lot of the guys here, like Joel and Aiden, and Taya and I wrote a bit for her last project, and so I am still doing a little bit of it, but not as much as I'd like to. I really do love writing. Like that's probably the thing that drives me and inspires me the most.
So you're finding yourself on the road a lot more than you would prefer because you'd rather be writing.
I think at the minute, if I was being completely honest, then a little bit. And I even just being away from the kids as much as I have to be at the minute, and it's definitely that's a big challenge. I actually have a song on the record which is, there's a line in So Will I that says, if the wind goes where you send it, so will I. And so I have a song on the record called While I'm in the Wind. And it's all about leaving how much I have to be away from the kids and kind of processing that. And it's almost like a bit of a letter to them, being like, I know this kind of sucks, but I hope you understand someday what's happening here.
Now, speaking of the record, 25 tracks. I mean, who puts 25 tracks on a record these days? Like that's 2 albums there, right? Honestly, really, what were you thinking? When
you're a prolific songwriter, you can do it, right?
Good night. And all the spoken stuff that you do on it as well, like because you've got some preludes and some where you talk about the song a little bit. I mean, all of that is on there as well. So it ends up being 50 tracks or something. It's like that's huge.
Good gracious.
Yeah. So we have there's the album, which was 25, and then we recently put out what did I call it? It was like a deluxe, was kind of called And Then Some. And that had one extra sort of new song and a bunch of acoustic versions. But then we also did a commentary version, which from memory is called the Songwriters Edition. And it's got, every song is, I kind of talk about it before each one. So that one's 50 tracks, which is, it's a lot. And it amazes me when people I've had people come up to me the last couple of weeks being like, I just I sat there and listened to the whole thing, and I was like, you're amazing, because that is it's a 3.5 hour commitment.
I think it's more, exactly. It's I'm still listening to your album, still listening. So I'm halfway through. I'm almost there,
it's like a book.
Yeah.
No, it was I don't think I ever fully set out. I think I thought it was, I knew it was going to be a long album. I never set out to make it as long as it was. It was kind of, I would write a song. I wanted it to show the full spectrum of my experience as a Christian, and then even just it's almost like a diary entry of my life over the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And it's very honest and raw. The way I've been talking about it is it's almost too honest in some places. It's a bit of an overshare in parts, where I was just feeling these things. I was definitely wrestling with my faith a lot, and then I had a lot of questions of God. And I was kind of well, if I'm feeling this, I'm sure a lot of people feel like this, and I'm wrestling a lot with the I guess imposter syndrome of that. For me, doing what I do, and a lot of those questions, they hit me pretty hard, because I was worried that if people knew I was feeling this, or if people knew I was going through what I'm going through, whatever, they maybe wouldn't want me here. And it really kind of messed me up a little bit. So I basically just put a lot of those sentiments into song and really tried to articulate, well, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. And hopefully, if that's what you're going through, you'll maybe feel a little bit more normal about it, or maybe a little less ashamed to talk about it or work through it. And so I hope it's helpful in that regard. And I wanted to do all that through the lens of hope. Like there is no, I didn't want to get cynical. I didn't want to get bitter. I didn't want any of that stuff. I wanted to point at least myself towards the like something greater, which is ultimately God, I guess. But even just the idea that, you know, there's a way through this and so I guess it just became, as I wrote one song, it'd be like, well, if I'm going to say that, I've kind of got to say this as well to show the other side of that. Sure. And then I would write that song and I'd be like, oh, I have a resolve. Exactly. And so it ended up just being almost like a clock. Like if I have like a 12 o'clock here, I've got to have a 6 o'clock. And then that just kept happening until there was 25 songs. But, I know, it's a lot. What was actually funny was the day before we were meant to hand in the record, we had 24. And the marketing guy, and we're overdue at this point. Like, it needs to be handed in tomorrow, everything. And he's in a meeting with me, and as a joke, he was like, you didn't go and add another song, did you? And I just, in my head, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Actually just to like... And so I went and recorded a voice memo of my kids. I have a song called Eden, which is the one that Brandon helped me with. And I said to my daughter, hey, Jeannie, what do you know about Eden? And she just replied, who's Eden? And I was like, that's perfect. And so I'd recorded it. And I just put that as like I think it's like the 4th track of the record or something. So that got us up to 25.
Oh, wow. Good gracious. Now, do you remember what your first song was that you wrote?
Yeah. It was a song called Homeward, which I wrote years ago with a friend, Brian Fowler. He's now like a really successful producer, engineer in Nashville, and, you know, has won Grammys, and he's done amazing. But we met right at the start of... It was one of the first writes I ever did in Nashville, and he just got started. He was just getting started, like was very, very green. And I think the idea was, it was actually my manager now that set up the session when he was A&Ring at Capitol, and he was like, I think let's just throw these 2 new kids together and see what happens. And and we just really hit it off, and we had such a fun day, and we wrote this song, and then we went and got barbecue at Puckett's, and it was a really special sort of connection that I was able to make really early on. But that song just kind of sat in, I guess, song purgatory for a lot of years. Like it was nearly
I like that song purgatory.
Yeah.
As far as
like, it was nearly on like a lot of different records. It was nearly on the United Empires record, and then it was nearly on. I can't remember. It was nearly on Wonder, but then we did So Will I instead, which I'm grateful for. And so, but I've always felt a deep connection to it, and so I wanted to make sure that I had a way to get it out there. So that was one of the first. It was actually the first song that I put out when I did kind of come to do my own thing.
As far as hitting it off with other co-writers, for some reason you were not able to do that with your wife. I mean, you started writing with her, and it just didn't. I got to say, my wife is not musically inclined. She has no interest in radio. And if I'll be honest, she really can't even carry a tune very well. And I kind of prefer that, you know, versus both of us doing the same thing. So I can understand if there would be friction with you writing music with your wife.
Yeah, completely. Well, and she's like she's an author. And so we both definitely connected over our love for words and our passion in that. But then when we actually sat down to write together, it was definitely a bit of a disaster. And she probably more on her, because she's very quick and very just like, it comes into your head, she puts it on the page, she moves on, and she'll edit it down the line.
It's done. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very fluid. And to her credit, it pretty much comes out almost perfect. So, whereas I am I'm like that for the first 70%, but then I really labor over the next 30. So I might write most of a song in 4 hours, but then the next 30% might take like 4 years. Like, so she was very frustrated by that process.
Oh, you would be driving her nuts. I could just see it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't do that anymore. Maybe one day, but it might be better for our marriage if we just keep it.
So she gives you your space and you give her hers for her craft.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Did you ever think when you were young and young enough that you were busking on the streets, did you ever think that your career would go to where it is now?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I definitely always wanted to be doing some version of what I'm doing now. But you know, I don't know if I ever thought that would really happen. And it is kind of with busking. Would everyone know what busk? I find that word to be, some people definitely know what it is, and then some people are like, what does that mean? Which to anyone that doesn't, it's like it's kind of like street performing.
Yeah, street performer, you got the guitar case open, people throw in money if they like what you're doing, that sort of thing. Yeah. Exactly.
You kind of sing aggressively at them until they pay you for it.
Right.
And so that was my job all through my teens, and it was, I'm really grateful for it. I'd highly recommend it for anyone that's trying to get into music, because there's no better way to learn how to read a room, I guess, than doing that, because your room is constantly moving. So you've got 10 seconds to kind of read it. And
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and try to speak into it. And you also have to, it develops a confidence in you that I think is an important skill to have, because I actually feel probably more comfortable now just standing on stage with just myself and an acoustic than I even do with a big band, because I just did it for so many years, out in the cold, like up against the telephone box in Belfast. And so yeah, it is crazy, and it's really what I love is going back to Belfast and seeing kids like in their teens doing the same thing, and I always love to sit and listen for a bit and, you know, throw them some money and encourage them.
Certainly, reading the room is one way to look at it, and I think the other thing too is it's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very you know, you don't have huge crowds. Like, you have to earn the crowds, right?
Exactly.
Indeed.
And it doesn't happen necessarily overnight, and it doesn't necessarily happen on any particular day. I mean, obviously, you've got to have talent, you know, that raw talent that people appreciate, people that can relate to what you're singing about. And especially if it's in a busy area where people are commuting or moving fast past you all the time, you can't necessarily get that crowd. So it's very humbling.
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, the first time, this is a funny story I've been kind of sharing on tour a little bit it'll make sense in a second, where one time I was busking down in Grafton Street, which is in Dublin. That's kind of like the main street in Dublin. It's where that movie Once was filmed. It's like a busking movie. And anyway, I'm out there with my guitar case and I'm doing my thing, and all of a sudden it starts raining. And, you know, it rains every day in Ireland, so that's not a big deal. But it was like, this day it was properly like bucketing, as we would say. Like, it's really, the rain is really coming down. And so everyone kind of runs in under the shop awnings in order to take cover from the rain. And I look around and realized, for the first time in my little life, I have this like captive audience, probably like 150 people.
That's awesome. That's great.
That are stuck there. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I got to do something special to kind of wow them. And I was like, well, it's raining. It'd be funny if I sing, when the sun shines, we'll shine together. I told you I'll be.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started singing that. And a few people are smiling and laughing and whatever. And it feels like it's going well. I'm getting good engagement from the crowd. And so I have this picture in my mind. I'm going to get to the end of the chorus, and the whole Grafton Street's going to erupt in song. Like, it's like a musical.
That's what I would have thought. Sure.
Yeah. So I get there and I'm like, come on, everybody, under my umbrella, Ella. And I leave it for them to sing. and not a single person. It was
nobody. No A.
No A.
Did they leave you hanging?
They absolutely left me hanging. And not only did they leave me hanging, but they actually started walking into the shops that they didn't even want to go into in order to get away from the awkwardness. And ever since then, I've had a deep-rooted trauma that I would try to elicit a response from a crowd or a congregation, and they wouldn't go with me, which is not the best. It's not the best trauma to wear when you're a worship leader.
It sounds like a nightmare, actually. Right?
Yeah, it really was. I learned my lesson that day.
Yeah, very humbling. Well, thank you so much, Benjamin, for hanging with us.
Of course, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for making time, and hopefully talk again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Benjamin.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. All the best.
You too.
You too. Bye-bye. What a great conversation with Benjamin.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes me think, I've got a Benjamin, right?
One of your kids? Yeah.
Yeah, my second son, his name is Benjamin. We call him Benji for short. I wonder if anybody calls Ben Benji.
We could have, and see if we get away with it, right?
Right. Well, listen, if you want to find out more about what's going on with Benjamin, his whereabouts, his songs, and all that good stuff, you can visit his website, and it's benjaminwilliamhastings.com.
Awesome. And now, before we go, some advice from David from Elevation Rhythm.
I would say be yourself. You have been uniquely designed for the purpose that only you can fulfill. And when you try and imitate other people that you look up to, you're just giving them a lesser brand them. I think if God has called you specifically, He has designed you, He's given you all the quirkiness, all the crazy things you do, because He wants you to be authentically yourself, and what you bring to worship, no one else can emulate. And so don't try to be someone else. If you can just embrace who God has created you to be, you will be everything that you need to be. So that's what I would tell them.
I second that emotion. That's so good. It's so necessary. Because even in Christian music and radio, you think radio, and a lot of times when artists and songwriters go to a writing session, they have in their minds, this is a song that we want to push to radio. Mm-hmm. So automatically you have in your mind, okay, this is the radio format.
These are the parameters. Yeah.
Right. When in fact we should just go in with the mindset, just like David shared, do it the way that God gave it to you. He made us unique, and embrace that uniqueness. Mm-hmm. It's what sets us apart, and that's great advice.
I don't think, based on your comment about writing a song for radio, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, though. Writing a song for radio, if that's your intent and if that's what you believe was intended for that song originally, whether it was a co-write or a solo, whatever. But don't let that limit you if it goes somewhere else. And quite frankly, after you've written the song, maybe you're going to end up coming up with a radio edit anyways. So this is the song, and then if you are still going to push it to radio, this is the radio version of it. And you see songwriters or artists do that all the time. Or labels, I suppose. Sure. It's really the labels, I think, doing most of that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can remember early on writing just because I'm a songwriter. Mm-hmm. And then after having been on a label, when I would go to a writing session, I had that in the back of my mind. And so I feel like it kind of restricted me to a certain extent. And really having to be in a healthy place in my mind when I went to write. Golly, if I had someone saying this before I went into a session to write, I think it would have been a lot more helpful for me. But yeah.
Not as limiting
Right.
Yeah. Good stuff. David from Elevation Rhythm, and many thanks to Benjamin William Hastings for joining us all the way from California on today's edition of Between the Grooves. And we would love to hear from you as well if you've got any questions for us. I thought to myself, sometimes people have questions about us, right? About you, Aisha, or about me, James. So if you've got any questions about us, about our lives or whatever, feel free to ask them. But we love hearing the questions about artists and some of the comments that they've made and some of the comments that we shouldn't have made. So feel free to comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to do a quick little follow wherever you are on your socials, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Aisha and James on Facebook and Twitter @Between Grooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.